Hello and a very good morning. You're watching the Breakfast News on Rajya Sabha television with me, Frank Pereira. Here are this morning's headlines. Government calls all-party meet ahead of the winter session of Parliament beginning tomorrow. Opposition parties closing ranks to target centre over issues from intolerance to rising prices. Prime Minister Narendra Modi addresses climate change concerns ahead of Paris Climate Summit, tells Indian diaspora in Singapore that India will do whatever possible to protect the environment. The BJP loses high-stakes by-election in Madhya Pradesh's Ratlam Jhabwa Lok Sabha seat, retains Devas Assembly seat, scores a surprise win in Mizoram. Russian President Vladimir Putin strongly condemns downing of Russian jet on Turkey-Syria border, calls it a stab on the back. NATO holds extraordinary meeting, backs Turkey. UN calls for de-escalation. A 30-day state of emergency announced in Tunisia following bombing of a bus packed with presidential guards in the capital, Tunis. Well, it will be a day of a flurry of meetings as the winter session of Parliament is set to begin on November 26th. The Parliamentary Affairs Minister M. Venkaiah Naidu will convene a meeting of leaders of various political parties in both the Houses of Parliament at 11 a.m. today. The meetings will be significant amidst anticipation that the session could be stormy as the opposition is planning to corner the government on various issues. The BJP Parliamentary Party Executive will be meeting at the Prime Minister's residence and the NDA constituents will also be meeting at 7 RCR. Lok Sabha Speaker Sumitra Mahajan will also meet leaders of parties in the Lok Sabha in the evening today. Meanwhile, the opposition parties have closed ranks to target the government on a range of issues from intolerance to rising prices. Parties including the Congress, the JDU and the left have already submitted their notices for adjournment motions demanding a debate on the issue of intolerance and passage of a resolution condemning such incidents. During the nearly month-long session, around 30 bills including GST and real estate regulation bills are slated to be taken up for consideration and passing.
Parliament, and will be taking all the parties into confidence, take their suggestions also if any, and the government always said we are willing to walk an extra mile to accommodate the views of the opposition. But the political parties must all work together in strengthening democracy, in strengthening the Parliament by allowing the Parliament to discuss, debate and decide.
Well, joining me on the phone line right now is our correspondent Shyam Sundar. Well, Shyam, as far as the government is concerned, it has got several crucial bills that it would like to be passed in this winter session of Parliament, and the government they're trying to strategize and get some kind of a consensus to ensure that its legislative work is done.
Yes, Frank, and yesterday we heard Mr. Arun Jaitley, Finance Minister. He said that government is trying to reach out to the opposition on the issue of GST, which is the top priority of the government. Prime Minister Narendra Modi also mentioned in his Singapore meeting that government is ready to roll out GST by 2016. But Congress, the main opposition party in the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, has made it very, very clear that the changes suggested by Congress, if government is not ready to make those changes, Congress is not on board as far as GST is concerned. So Mr. Arun Jaitley said that government is ready to consider changes suggested by Congress, but he also made it very clear that few changes suggested by Congress are not acceptable, because that will, if those changes are accepted, then it will be flawed architecture, and it will, instead of benefiting the states, it can damage the whole structure. So the government is trying to reach out to the opposition, and there will be a series of meetings today by Parliamentary Affairs Minister Mr. M. Venkaiah Naidu and Speaker Sumitra Mahajan, and there will be NDA and BJP meeting also. So 2 days, 1 day before the winter session starts, there are a series of meetings, but opposition has many issues, like you mentioned, issue of intolerance will be there, and opposition parties would insist that there should be a thorough discussion and a resolution should be passed. So we have to see, of course, opposition would be on offensive, so it is up to the government how government reaches out to the opposition and how government convinces the opposition to smooth functioning of the parliament.
Indeed. All right. Shyam Sundar, will have to leave to that. Thank you so much for joining us there with all those details. Well, with just a day to go for the winter session of Parliament, the opposition is busy fine-tuning its strategy. The main opposition party, the Congress, is all set to take on the NDA government on several issues, including intolerance. Congress also seems to be in no mood to give in to the GST bill, a key reform bill which the government wants cleared in this session.
Having tasted victory recently in Bihar, the opposition parties seem to be on a firm footing for the winter session of Parliament beginning Thursday. The main opposition party, the Congress, is all set to corner the NDA government on a number of issues, the most important being the debate on intolerance.
हंगामा करने के हमारा कोई इरादा नहीं है, हंगामा हम नहीं भी चाहते। हम ये चाहते हैं कि पार्लियामेंट स्मूथ चले, ठीक ढंग से चले, लेकिन पार्लियामेंट को ठीक ढंग से चलाने के लिए उसकी जिम्मेदारी ज्यादा से ज्यादा गवर्नमेंट की होती है।
Other items on the agenda include issues related to farmers and the rising prices of essential commodities. The party also seems to be in no mood to give in easily on the contentious GST bill, a key reform measure of the NDA government.
Thousands of farmers are committing suicide. There is agrarian distress. There is very sharp escalation of food commodity prices. The kitchen budgets are now beyond many of the common households. Is the Parliament supposed only to discuss what the Prime Minister and his government want, just one bill?
Meanwhile, the government has called an all-party meeting on Wednesday in a bid to bring everyone on board for the smooth conduct of the House. The monsoon session of Parliament this year was a near washout due to the standoff between the opposition and Treasury benches on several issues. Vishal Daya's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
Moving on to some international news now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi wrapped up his two-nation tour of Singapore and Malaysia. During his last day in Singapore, Modi addressed the Indian diaspora. He spoke about climate change concerns ahead of the Paris Climate Summit during his address. Let's listen in.
Addressing the Indian diaspora before winding up his two-day visit to Singapore, Prime Minister Narendra Modi credited Indians living abroad for changing the country's image worldwide. Addressing around 15,000 Indians, Prime Minister Modi said, "Today the world looks towards India with great faith." Modi also invoked the legacy of the late Lee Kuan Yew, known as the founding father of Singapore, saying India needs to learn from Singapore. He further emphasized on the need to learn about cleanliness from Singapore. Asserting that it was time to change habits, the Prime Minister said Indians have decided that they want a clean country now.
जिस धरती पर पहुंचे, जान पहचान थी या नहीं थी, हालात अनुकूल थे या प्रतिकूल थे, आपने उस धरती को अपना बना लिया। उस देश के लोगों के साथ आप ऐसे मिल गए जैसे दूध में शक्कर मिल जाए।
Talking about opening up of various sectors for foreign investment, the Prime Minister said he does not see FDI only as foreign direct investment but also as first develop India. He said India needs to learn a lot from how Singapore was developed in 50 years, transforming a small village of fishermen into one of the most developed nations.
न हिंदुस्तान आंख झुका करके बात करता है, न कभी हिंदुस्तान किसी को आंख दिखाने की कोशिश करता है, लेकिन हिंदुस्तान आत्मविश्वास से भरा हुआ है, वो आंख मिला करके बात करता है। अब विश्व ये नहीं सोचता है कि भारत एक बहुत बड़ा बाजार है, हम अपना माल बेचने के लिए पहुंच जाएंगे। वो सोच बदल चुकी है। अब उसको लगता है मौका मिल जाए तो हिंदुस्तान के साथ पार्टनरशिप कर ले।
Ahead of the climate summit in Paris, the Prime Minister also said that India will do whatever possible to protect the environment.
हम ऊर्जा तो चाहते हैं, लेकिन दुनिया के लिए संकट भी पैदा करना नहीं चाहते। भारत ने सपना देखा है 2030 तक 40% बिजली वे नॉन फोसिल माध्यम से होगी, कोयले के माध्यम से नहीं होगी। मतलब ये जो छोटे छोटे टापू देश है ना, जिनको डर लग रहा है कि समंदर का अगर स्तर बढ़ गया तो डूब जाएंगे, हम आपको डूबने नहीं देंगे। हर किसी को गले लगा।
The Prime Minister also said India can no more just rely on the stories of valor of the past. He said there is a need to take inspiration from past achievements and make efforts to raise the stature of the country through development. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, the gift of a map, charcha over chai and vada, and an address to the CEOs of Singapore inviting them to invest in India. That is how day 2 of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Singapore visit panned out. The two sides signed 10 agreements on a number of issues, including political, defence and security cooperation. Here's a report.
Taking bilateral ties a step further, India and Singapore signed 10 documents on Tuesday. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his Singaporean counterpart Lee Hsien Loong signed a joint declaration to deepen and broaden the engagement in existing areas of cooperation and catalyst new ones, including political, defence and security cooperation and economic, cultural and people-to-people contact. The two countries also agreed to enhance bilateral cooperation in maritime security. They have agreed to operationalize the technical agreement on sharing white shipping information between the two navies. Modi and Lee also launched the stamps of Rashtrapati Bhavan and Singapore's Istana to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic ties. Prime Minister Modi later addressed the Indian-Singapore Economic Convention and interacted with CEOs of several companies. Promising reforms to make India more attractive for foreign investments, the Prime Minister also promised to carefully hold the investors' hands and guide them.
The last 18 months, reforms are happening in a big way. They are now reaching to the last mile. Reform is to transform the system so that they perform. Simply, but they aim at enabling the people to realize their potential and dreams.
The Prime Minister also told the CEOs that the latest round of FDI reforms in India will make the country the most open economy in the world.
We are also conscious of the last mile operational issue in such policies. In that spirit, we are fine-tuning the procedures also. Early this month, we have taken a very dynamic step to further open up the economy for FDI.
Earlier, Prime Minister Narendra Modi paid tribute to freedom fighters at the Indian National Army Memorial Marker. This was the first visit by an Indian Prime Minister to the memorial marker. It is just one of the 11 markers erected in 1995 to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the end of the Second World War. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Moving on now, by-election results for Ratlam, Warangal, Manipur and Mizoram were announced on Tuesday. The ruling Telangana Rashtra Samiti retained the Warangal Lok Sabha seat. Its candidate Pasunuri Dayakar won by a massive margin of nearly 4.6 lakh votes. The ruling BJP in Madhya Pradesh lost the Ratlam Jhabua Lok Sabha seat. Kantilal Bhuria of the Congress beat BJP candidate Nirmala Bhuria. The party, however, retained the Devas Assembly seat. BJP also opened its account in the Manipur Assembly by defeating the ruling Congress in Thang, Maiband and Tongju. Former Mizoram Health Minister Lal Tanzara of the Congress won the Aizwal North seat with a huge majority.
ये 3 महीने से पता नहीं कितने हजार करोड़ के आश्वासन घोषणाएं सब होने के बाद इतनी बड़े मार्जिन से भूरिया जी जीते हैं। कांग्रेस की जीत तो हुई है, उससे ज्यादा बड़ी शिवराज सिंह की हार हुई है।
भाजपा का मुखौटा पूरी तरह से उतर रहा है और आज जनता अपना हक दोबारा आजमा रही है और दोबारा भाजपा को अपना आईना दिखाने का काम कर रही है। और ये भाजपा, ये जीत झाबुआ में जनता की जीत है, कांग्रेस के आम कार्यकर्ताओं की जीत है और स्वयं हमारे प्रत्याशी और हमारी पूरी टीम की जीत है।
While aiming to help people with intellectual and development disabilities, the government on Tuesday launched 10 new schemes emphasizing the need to give equal rights to the people with disabilities. Minister of Social Justice and Empowerment, Tawar Chand Gehlot, announced that they propose to increase the categories of disability from 7 to 19. The proposals will be reflected in the disability bill that could come up in the winter session of Parliament.
The Ministry of Social Justice on Tuesday launched 2 new schemes and 8 revised schemes for people with disabilities. For the first time, the ministry is also seeking a higher budgetary allocation for the National Trust that implements the schemes. Over the last 15 years, the trust spent 64.75 crore rupees on its initiatives. Under the fresh proposals, the spending will be 90 crore rupees over the next 2 years, a 10-fold increase.
We've revised the financial parameters, so obviously we will be looking at much higher uptakes of funds from the National Trust by our stakeholders and partner NGOs. We have decided to give them about 80 crores of rupees and over 2 years. So over the next year, I think it will be about 33 crores and the remainder the next year.
The 8 revised schemes include Disha, Vikas, Samarth, Gharonda, Nirmaya, Sahyogi, Gyan Prabha, Prerna, Sambhav, Barte Kadam. A statutory organization, the National Trust looks into 4 disabilities: autism, cerebral palsy, mental retardation and multiple disabilities.
The new schemes have been approved by the board of the National Trust and they have now been launched. These schemes will essentially provide insurance for persons with disabilities. They will provide halfway homes for persons with disabilities. They will give them self-employment, or they would give them training for getting them employable skills, as well as they would look into the other issues which are faced by them in education also.
Linking itself with the Digital India program, the ministry also launched a first-of-its-kind disabled-friendly website, www.thenationaltrust.gov.in. The website will not just help persons with disabilities but even NGOs. The entire process of implementing the new schemes, right from submitting the applications to disbursing funds, will be done online. A payment gateway and scheme management system are also part of the scheme. This is Anshu J. Singh's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, let's take a look now at the events lined up for the day in our segment, The Day Ahead. Rahul Gandhi will be in Bangalore today to interact with students in the Silicon City over building vibrant India. He will interact with about 1,500 students at Mount Carmel College and will deliver a speech on the role of the youth for a vibrant India. The Congress Vice President is relaunching his project to connect with the youth, and this will start a series of visits he will make to colleges and universities across the country. BJP National President Amit Shah will address party workers in Dibrugarh district of Assam today. The party has pinned its hopes on the state's assembly election next year after a debacle in the Bihar polls. The BJP has been organizing public mobilization campaigns in the 14 Lok Sabha constituencies across the state during the month. For the first time in Assam politics, BJP had won as many as 7 seats in the general elections held last year. An anti-terrorism court in Islamabad will resume its hearing in the trial of 7 Mumbai terror attack accused, including mastermind Zakir Rahman Lakhvi. The court had adjourned the hearing on the 18th of November as 2 witnesses summoned did not turn up. Several LET operatives, including Lakhvi, were arrested in 2009 for their alleged role in the attacks that left 166 people dead and over 300 injured. Pope Francis landed in the Kenyan capital Nairobi for his maiden trip to Africa. During his visit, Pope Francis will celebrate Mass with Kenyans and hold various meetings with President Uhuru Kenyatta, religious leaders and the youth. He will also spend time with the less fortunate members of society. The Pope will be in Kenya for 3 days before departing to Uganda and thereafter the Central African Republic. It is the 546th birth anniversary of the first Sikh Guru, Guru Nanak, today. Sikhs from across the world are offering prayers at Gurudwaras to celebrate the auspicious day. The festivities started this morning with the Prabhat Feris, processions that start from the Gurudwaras, and devotees then go to nearby localities and chant hymns. Well, it's time for a short break now, but all the international and sports news on the other side. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
existing laws are there, which you are subsuming them into about 4 to 5 categories. Was this a kind of a unilateral decision?
We have taken many initiatives on the recommendations of the trade unions.
Are the labour reforms, if at all they are pushed, can they really prevent the casualization of workers?
The labour is under the concurrent list. Appropriate governments are state governments.
Child labour amendment bill. There are accusations that the government is trying to dilute this law.
In this amendment, we are adding a new definition.
Watch to the point with Union Labour Minister Bandaru Dattatreya only on Rajya Sabha television.
Welcome back. You're watching Rajya Sabha television. Well, Russian President Vladimir Putin has strongly condemned the downing of a Russian jet on the Turkey-Syria border on Tuesday. He called it a stab in the back. Turkey justified its action, alleging that Russia had violated the Turkish airspace. Following a war of words, NATO held an extraordinary meeting to discuss the incident, after which they confirmed that the Russian warplane did fly into Turkish airspace. Meanwhile, fresh reports suggest that a Russian Marine was also killed during a helicopter mission to rescue the crew of the downed jet. Here's a detailed report.
Russian President Vladimir Putin warned of serious consequences after Turkey shot down a Russian Su-24 jet warplane near the Syrian border, alleging a violation of Turkish airspace by Moscow. One of the 2 crew members was killed. Fate of the other is still unclear. Putin called it a stab in the back. Turkey retaliated, defending its right to protect borders.
И это при том, что мы с американскими партнерами подписали соглашение о предупреждении инцидентов в воздухе. А Турция, как известно, в ряду тех, кто объявила о том, что они якобы воюют с терроризмом в составе американской коалиции. Если у них у ДИЛ такие деньги, а счет idет.
Biz hiçbir şekilde herhangi bir ülkenin toprağında gözü olan bir şeyden gelmiyoruz, yaklaşımını benimsemiyoruz. Ama herkesin de bilmesi lazım ki.
Following a war of words, the NATO held an emergency meet at Turkey's request to discuss the incident. Backing Turkey, NATO called for a dialogue between Russia and Turkey. UN Chief Ban Ki-moon also urged for de-escalation of the crisis.
I have previously expressed my concerns about the implications of the military actions of the Russian Federation close to NATO borders. This highlights the importance of having and respecting arrangements to avoid such incidents in the future. We stand in solidarity with Turkey.
The US-led coalition strikes continue in Syria and Iraq despite the incident. This is not the first time that Turkey has alleged Russia of its airspace violations. Tensions in skies over Syria mounted since September, when Russia stepped up its fight against rebels supporting Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. The US-led coalition has also been using the same airspace in its fight against the IS. Since the Paris attacks, there has been hints of a rapprochement between Russia and the West, both uniting against IS. But the latest incident posed a huge challenge. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Some more international news now. A hostage situation in the northern French town of Roubaix caused a big scare on Tuesday. However, it has been confirmed now that the incident was not linked to the Paris attacks earlier this month and has ended with the hostages now safe. Up to 3 armed men took a woman and her 2 children, including a 1-year-old baby, hostage in the town near the border with Belgium. Gunfire exchange took place and one of the gunmen was killed during the police operation, while a hunt is on for the other suspects who are on the run. The incident came at a time when the place was tense and France was on high alert following the terrorist shootings and bombings in Paris, and as police in both France and Belgium hunt for suspects linked to the attacks that left 130 dead. Officials insisted the hostage situation that lasted several hours was not linked to terrorism but was related to an attempted robbery. Well, just over a week after the horrific Paris attacks, French President François Hollande met his US counterpart Barack Obama in the White House on Tuesday. Both leaders agreed to stand united in the fight against the Islamic State. However, Hollande ruled out any troops on the ground in Syria. Hollande has stepped up his efforts to garner support for a more coordinated international campaign to destroy Islamic State. He is expected to visit Russia on Thursday.
This barbaric terrorist group, ISIL or Daesh, and its murderous ideology pose a serious threat to all of us. It cannot be tolerated, it must be destroyed, and we must do it together. This is the unity of purpose that brings us here today.
Et la reprise des points clés occupés par Daesh en Syrie. Il est également urgent de fermer la frontière entre la Syrie et la Turquie pour qu'aucun terroriste ne vienne, notamment en Europe.
Well, let's take a look now at all the other international news in World Wrap. As the investigation over Paris attacks continue, the French prosecutors said that the suspected ringleader Abdelhamid Abaoud was near the Bataclan theatre during the siege. The mobile phone data also showed Abaoud returned to targeted cafes and restaurants. They have also gathered evidence that he was planning an attack on Paris's La Défense business district. Meanwhile, an arrest warrant has been issued in Belgium for a man named Mohamed Abrini in connection with the Paris attacks. At least 12 people were killed when a bomb exploded in a bus packed with presidential guards in Tunisian capital Tunis. The bus blew up when the guards were boarding the bus to be taken to the presidential palace on the outskirts of the city. Tunisian President Beji Said Ebassi has declared a state of emergency for 30 days. A curfew is also in place. Initial reports suggest that it could be a suicide bomb attack. An investigation is underway. The US released a dashboard camera video which shows a white police officer fatally shooting a black teenager 16 times in Chicago in 2014. The police officer has been charged with first-degree murder. Police sources said that the black teenager refused to drop a knife. Chicago mayor has appealed for calm. Meanwhile, in Minneapolis, anti-racism protests were marred by violence when 3 white men opened fire at a rally, injuring 5 people. Moving on to some sports news now. India will take on South Africa in the 3rd test at Nagpur today. India lead the 4-match series 1-0 and will look to win the series with a test remaining. South Africa will be again without pacer Dale Steyn as he is yet to fully recover from a groin injury. Here's a match preview.
India will look to seal the test series as they take on South Africa in the 3rd test in Nagpur today. Indian spinners will once again be a big threat to the visitors on a turning pitch at Nagpur. With R. Ashwin and Ravindra Jadeja in impressive form, leg spinner Amit Mishra has also been included in the playing 11.
The other is, if I was playing against them, I would find it really difficult to score off. I can assure you that. So I'm sure it's not pleasant facing all 3 together, and I'm glad that we have all 3 in our team.
It's a do-or-die game for South Africa to keep the contest alive. They will be hoping for a batting revival as they have just managed a higher score of 214 runs in their 3 innings. Injury woes continue to trouble the visitors. They will be without the services of their premier pace bowler Dale Steyn for the 2nd match running as he has not fully recovered from a groin injury.
Okay, and the first question, Dale Steyn probably won't play in this test match. Don't think his injury has recovered fully.
India is leading the 4-match series 1-0 after winning the first test in Mohali. The second test in Bangalore ended in a draw after rain washed out the last 4 days of the match. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, that's it on this edition of the Breakfast News. Have a good day.